You have to believe in you long before the world is ever going to. There's no difference between me and, the current success in the industry or the top seller or whatever. The difference is the level of self-belief.
Welcome to Shift, an exclusive podcast by DSN. I'm your host, Blake Mallon, and this is where high-performing entrepreneurs and experts share their most powerful shifts in mindset, skill set, and strategy to help you accelerate your business and amplify your impact. I challenge you to be present, open your mind, and let the shift begin. Welcome to Shift. I'm your host, Blake Mallon, and we are honored to have an extraordinary leader and entrepreneur on the show with us today. Her journey began as a waitress and personal trainer while earning her MBA. Over the last 7 years in direct selling, she has transitioned to a full-time professional, balancing building a thriving community and being a present mom for life's important moments. She is known for her mastery of attraction marketing and community building. I can't wait to dive into all of that. Her resilience through personal and mental health challenges not only fuels her own success, but she also is empowered to connect authentically as she inspires other people to achieve their dreams. I love how she says, "I believe people appreciate my genuine approach and the honesty I bring to every interaction. I'm not afraid to go against the grain, think outside the box, and challenge conventional norms. The fearlessness in expressing my true self and innovative ideas sets me apart and resonates with others." I think you're going to feel that today. She is absolutely passionate about changing lives, has a visionary perspective on where the industry is going. I can't wait to hear. And I just know today's conversation is going to be both inspiring and eye-opening. So please help me welcome to the show, Jessica Loftis. Jessica, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Blake, in that intro. That's just awesome. Makes me feel so good. And I'm so excited to be with you today.
You are doing amazing things. I love the energy you put out online, and I've been excited for this conversation. So thank you for taking time away from your family and your team to be with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it.
So California to Oklahoma. Tell me how that happened.
It's kind of funny. People are like, "Why are you in Oklahoma?" But it's funny because I actually went to junior college in the far northern corner of California on a rodeo scholarship. And then once I graduated from junior college, I got another rodeo scholarship to go to school out in Oklahoma. And my husband actually got the same kind of deal. So we both actually decided to come out to Oklahoma, and we just really liked it and stayed. And this is just where I've planted my roots and made a life.
Did you just say you got a rodeo scholarship from California?
Yeah, they actually have those. They do. Yeah, I used to barrel race and rope. I was born and raised a cowgirl. I'm definitely country as country gets. So it's been an exciting journey, especially to transition into direct sales over the years. It's been really fun.
I absolutely love that. So I'm down in Southern California, so Santa Monica, Malibu. Not a lot of
All
rodeo down
righty.
here, but I love that. I know Oklahoma is an absolutely beautiful place. So let's
Mhm.
rewind. So 7 years ago, you took the leap into direct selling. Take us to that moment. What inspired you to make the leap? And did you know at that time that this was going to be it, that you'd go to where you are today? Or at what point in your journey did you know this was going to be your profession?
Honestly, my entry into direct sales was not the stereotypical norm. I was coaching some athletes at a bodybuilding show in Denver, Colorado, and
Mm-hmm.
someone actually had a booth set up. And the funny thing is, I didn't even really pay attention to the booth. I'm a talker. I'm that person. I was just getting into my little conversation, and I actually ran into this person's table and knocked some other things over, and I felt super bad. I'm like, oh my goodness. I felt so embarrassed, to be honest. And then he just kind of went right in. He's like, "Okay, so you're a coach, and what are your goals? And are you a sponsored athlete?" And at the time I actually was. And he just kind of went straight to the point and was like, "Why don't you just drop your sponsor and sponsor yourself and start making more commission and changing lives and doing all these things?" And I was like, "Okay." And so he gave me some samples. I went back home and talked to my husband about it. And I was like, I think that this actually sounds like a really good idea. The company that I found was one of those things where it was practicing everything that I preached already. And so I just went all in with it and never looked back. And it really shocked me, to be honest, because I was kind of against it at first, but my husband's the one who actually talked me into it. And so ever since then, it's just been such a great experience. And I'm so glad that, I ran into that table.
That is definitely a different story. I love that, especially today, right? Usually the story starts with, well, I was on Instagram or I was scrolling through my TikTok. So it was a physical booth that someone was taking time out to set
Yeah.
up, probably paid a cost to be there. And I love that it didn't come to you. You ran into it. And the
Right.
fact that
It
your
was a
husband
godsend thing.
supported you, the fact that
Yeah,
your
he
husband
did.
supported you, that's amazing. Usually you hear the opposite,
Yeah.
right? So I love that.
Right, right. I was kind of like that person, the stereotypical one that's like, "Oh, this is just another company." And my husband actually was the selling factor for me on it, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how that played out. But I'm so glad that it did play out that way because it's been fun.
Love it. Well, the world tends to open doors that are meant for us. It's an amazing
Mhm.
story. And, I know 7 years, I'm sure you've had a lot of moments so far in your journey. Maybe take us to emotionally. What was
Mhm.
one of the highest points? And I'm not talking, it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to a result or an outcome or an achievement, but just where you felt at an all time high. And then maybe the opposite. What has been one of the maybe lowest emotional points in your 7 year journey so far?
Right. Well, I know this sounds so simple, but I think a lot of people can really relate, especially in this day and age, was being able to put my bills on auto pay. Like
Hmm.
that was a big deal for me because before coming into direct sales, we were struggling financially. It was hard. I had a newborn baby, a little baby girl at the time, and it was you're always questioning as a parent, like, how am I going to get through next week? How am I going to pay my bills? and
Hmm.
and to not have to worry and to have that confidence, just to be able to go like, hey, let's just do auto pay, we don't even have to worry about it anymore. That was probably one of the highest points for me in the beginning, just because that made such an impact on my life. Because I mean, even in relationships and your mindset and the way you feel, a lot of that can actually be linked to a financial burden, right? I mean, it sucks that it is that way, but it really is. And it creates a lot of stress on people. So to be able to have that peace of mind that my family was taken care of and that we could do that was pretty phenomenal. And when it comes down to the lowest points, I was one of those kind of people that was like, run, 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 run. And I've had some really amazing mentors on my journey. And one of my mentors kept trying to tell me, you need to slow down before you speed up. You need to slow down before you speed up. And actually crashed my business one time pretty bad, to the point where it's like you're making really good money and you've got your bills on auto pay. And then all of a sudden, it's like you're only making a few $100. And I didn't really understand. I had to learn the hard way. I had to get knocked down off to my pedestal a little bit, but then I was actually able to come back and rebuild even better than ever before. And so I did, like I said, I had to learn the lessons the hard way, but now I got to actually rebuild with a solid foundation that I wanted in the first place. And I just didn't know it then. I was in my, mid late 20s. And so, a little hard-headed at the time, as much as I hate to admit it, but that was a big lesson for me, was to really just, you know, like, slow down and take your time and do things right and just really take care of your people. Cause I'd just be signing people up and just getting excited about it. And I wouldn't really spend the time to help develop those people. And in this industry, our income is a reflection of our impact, right? And
Hmm.
so it just got me to transition and really refocus on the things that I really felt like were important in the beginning, that I kind of lost a little bit of sight of when the money started coming in a bit quicker than, I had really even planned. So I'm thankful for it. It was a hard lesson to learn, but it was definitely worth it.
I definitely want to go deeper there in a minute, but I love the feeling you just gave all of us when you said just put everything on auto pay. I mean, there's just a sense of peace when all of
Hmm.
a sudden you can kind of like,
Yes.
boom, swipe all of that. And I think that was an amazing way to put that. I love that that's one of your high moments. I've noticed that you use the term living life on your own terms. What does that mean when you say I get to live life today on my own terms?
So actually, when I first graduated from college, I went into, a corporate job and all that. And even just asking time off to get married, I
Mhm.
actually wasn't a mom yet at this time, but they were hounding me when I was going to come back to work from my honeymoon. And I had only taken 6 days, not even 6 days. I think it was probably four actual, working days off of work. And they were like, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? And you better get back here. Things are going crazy and all this kind of stuff. And it's just crazy that you couldn't even take that time to relax on something like a honeymoon, right? You just
Mhm.
got married. Like that's the time that you should be able to be present and not worry. And now I can take as much vacation as I want because I can take my computer with me. I can take my phone with me, and to be able to do everything mobile really just allows us that true freedom that we're all really looking for, and to be able to go to the softball field and truly be present and not have to worry about, oh gosh, am I going to be able to get off work? Do I have enough vacation days? Just to really do what you want, to have that free and open schedule and to be able to design your own life is truly such a blessing. And it's one thing that so many, I feel like, people really want in life. And direct selling is one of the only things that can actually not only provide the financial freedom, but time freedom as well. So that's been a real big deal for me.
I think I heard you share a moment in a prior conversation where you were at a point where you almost let someone else's opinion stop you in your tracks.
Yeah.
If you're willing to take us to that moment, explain the situation and what in that moment inspired you to keep moving forward, and maybe what lessons did you grab from that you carry with you today?
Right. So actually, I got into doing bodybuilding, and more, it's like kind of like a fitness pageant. I don't do the stereotypical bodybuilding, but
Mhm.
something very similar. And when I first decided to do it, I was actually 7 months postpartum. And the
Oh, wow.
reason why I decided to, yeah, it was pretty quick after I had my daughter, but I just needed something and this was actually before I found direct sales.
Mhm.
And, I decided to do it because I needed to get me back. And I thought that that was going to be the thing. And so I decided to go into a 20-week prep, 7 months postpartum. And man, I was training like crazy. I was on point with everything. I was dedicated. I was still breastfeeding. I mean, I was doing all the things, right? A new mom, just really had my plate full. And about 2 weeks out from my very first show where I was training, there was a trainer, coach, whatever you want to call them, that actually started talking very negatively about me, my business, my body, that I shouldn't get
Mhm.
on stage because I didn't look up to par. And at the end of the day, it was more just a thing to get me back after baby. It really didn't have anything to do with really how I looked on the stage or anything like that. I mean, I suffered from really bad postpartum depression, and it was that thing that was kind of helping me come out of that. And so I actually almost pulled out of the show because of it. So 2 weeks out, I called my coach. I was like, girl, I'm out. I'm not going to do this. I just can't. And then she said, well, why are you pulling out? You've been phenomenal. You look great. All these things. And I told her the story. And she's like, first off, where's the gym? I'm gonna burn it down. So, she was in my corner, and then she's like, of course, just kidding. But seriously, no, anyway,
Mhm.
I went ahead and went through with it. And then the funny thing is, I get there and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like 20 girls in my category. They look phenomenal. And I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? It's not about that. It's about me getting to this point and accomplishing a goal and pushing hard through, postpartum depression. And I ended up winning the entire show. And
Oh, wow.
so yeah, it was pretty cool, and it's really what kickstarted a lot for me, and it's crazy because then I became a coach in bodybuilding, and honestly, I would have never found direct sales if it wasn't for that, because that's where I discovered direct sales.
Mhm.
And, like I said, I would have never done that if I would have let that person dictate what I was going to do with my life. So, I've always had this mantra of share fearlessly, and I had a really great mentor. And I remember him saying, you have to be unoffendable in this business. And ever since then, I just was like, man, my daughter's life would be so different. My life would be so different if I would have let that one person's opinion of me dictate what I was going to do. And just because somebody thinks something of you or doesn't believe in you, that doesn't equal your worth. What you believe about yourself is what actually is the worth. It's how much you believe in you, and it has nothing to do with anybody else. It's a very personal thing. And so, like I said, ever since then, I didn't really realize it until reflecting back some years later
Hmm.
that was a big, shift in my life. It really was. And really how I've approached direct sales with just an unoffendable and fearless mentality that I feel like really just, you got to have thick skin, and another good mentor of mine, Darlene Unklebach, she has always told me new levels bring new devils.
Hmm.
And if you want to level up in your life, you gotta be able to face them. It's just a test to get to that next level so you can develop the strength and the characteristics needed to get to that next level.
So good. Unoffendable. Am I pronouncing that
Mhm.
correctly?
Yeah, yeah,
I
you
don't
gotta
think I've
become
ever.
unoffendable.
I don't
It's
think I've
probably
ever
not
even
even a
heard that.
word.
I don't think I've ever even heard that word. I wrote it down and I underlined it. Be unoffendable. I
Offendable.
absolutely love it.
Logan has told me
Share.
to live by that, and I've just lived by that and not just in business and life, and it's majorly impacted my life and my business just by living, in that way. There's a lot of peace that comes from it when you do that.
I absolutely love that term. I'm going to borrow that and
Mhm.
share fearlessly. Great advice and words of wisdom from some awesome mentors. I'm sure, it's interesting because like that shift in your perspective, I'm sure you now carry with you every single day when you have people out there that are not believing the same level you are in what you're doing, right? And I was always taught that your haters can be your action motivators, but you got to go through that moment where you realize getting to the other side actually does fuel you. I think that's super wise. You have another, shift. I think I've heard just in researching some of your background and your story. If you're willing to go there with us, I know in your journey, probably prior to becoming an entrepreneur, you went through certain challenges when it comes to like your physical health, your mental health. And I guess there was a moment where you chose to take a new perspective there as well, where those obstacles or those setbacks actually became a gift that you think helps you in what you do today. Can you take us to there to the extent you're willing to of what you overcame and how do you think about that now? And how does it help you when you're leading people or connecting with people today?
Yeah, absolutely. I've struggled with so many things from, like I said, postpartum depression, which is unfortunately extremely common these days, body dysmorphia, eating disorders. I started having eating disorders when I was probably in middle school. And I mean,
Mhm.
from one end to another, from like anorexia, bulimia, like just all those things, and having such a negative relationship with food and my body. I always looked at my body as, oh, they just nitpicking it. And it was so hard to truly overcome that. But in reality, we can't hate ourselves into a version that we can love, right? We really have to love ourselves in every step of our journey if we want to have success, because we're not going to get to where we want to be just hating on ourselves all the time. We really can be, our best friend or our worst enemy, and that's really up to us. Nobody's perfect. Nobody has like the perfect body. Even those people that you see on social media, half the stuff is photoshopped anyway. And just really being thankful that you can wake up and have another day, and that you can be the best version of yourself, and that you do have the ability to be able to accomplish anything. Really shifting my mindset in that way was a very hard transition, but it's just one of those things that you got to accept, and a lot of the times it's about getting around the right people and putting your health first, putting your health, making it a priority, because your body doesn't care about your goals, whether they're business related or physically related, mentally related, unless you're healthy, right? You got to get right on the inside first. We can't expect to have like the best mind, the best, all those things with being unhealthy. And so making sure that my health was a priority, my true health, my physical health, my mental health, and putting the right things in front of me. I mean, I even stopped following certain accounts on Instagram because they made me feel bad
Mhm.
about myself, or, Facebook or whatever. And we're just exposed to that perfection so much that we almost feel like it's something that we have to do, right? To be happy. But in reality, we don't. And so really coming to terms with that has been a big thing for me. But also now going through that stuff, I feel like when you go through the hard times that you can become such an amazing coach. And sometimes I feel like we are purposely driven down those paths so that way we can help somebody in the future, right? Because it's
Mhm.
crazy. I actually just recently, about 6 months ago, had one of the girls on my team have an issue like I had when I was going to compete. And to be able to say, girl, I've been there, sis. Like, I get it. I will walk with you. I know what you're feeling, but I know what it feels like to be on the other side. And then their sense of belief in themselves because they know someone's been there, done that increases dramatically, and then it just helps push them to that next level, and it's really just about being that person that you needed in the midst of your struggle. So it's been a fun process to be able to help people through that, just because I went through those hard times. So the hard times, I know it can be a rough patch to go through, but at the end of the day, it really can serve people in so many ways that you really can't serve unless you've actually been there.
I mean, Jessica, you are nailing this, right? And in those stories and those shared experiences, because although it's stuff we've all heard, right? I mean, we've all heard, well, we shouldn't let the opinions of others dictate our actions. Until you go through that experience and that becomes real for you, right? You can't live that every day and coach others like you're saying. So I love that. And the fact that you were able to kind of shift, right, or reframe your challenges, the things you went through. And thank you for sharing vulnerably with us everything you went through, physically and emotionally during those times. But now be able to look back and say, okay, well, maybe you went through those for a reason. So now you
Mhm.
can share how to get through that. And that becomes a way for you to connect and inspire and move a community like you do today. So I think you're spot on. Did you say new levels bring new devils? Did I get that correct?
That's right. New levels bring new devils. And it's really crazy how true that really is. Like you
Go
just
deeper
start,
there. Go
feeling
deeper there.
good.
So what is that? Go deeper there.
Yeah.
What is it? What do you mean by that?
So, I mean, I was about, for example, with the story that I shared about the person talking negatively about me, I was fixing to hit a new level of life. Like I was feeling good. I was on cloud nine. I felt like I was already not, and I'm not saying just winning the show, but winning in life just because of what I was accomplishing. Right. And so, that little, new little devil started coming at me, and they want to take you off your path, right? And it's not saying like this person's the devil. That's not what I'm trying to say, but in order to have success, you have to realize challenges have to be faced. Like, we got to quit thinking that success is just like this fluffy stuff and everything's just going to go the way we want. But unfortunately, we become stronger and better and develop the characteristics that are needed to actually be the person that can accomplish the goal, right? And so when we're trying to accomplish a new goal, I actually have an expectation that something's going to be negative,
Mhm.
that's going to happen, that I'm going to have to shift with. And when you learn to start expecting that, your
Mhm.
ability to pivot becomes so much higher, because it's not just like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? It's like, you're okay, all right, well, it just means if I can get through this, then something better is on the other side. And so when you really start coming at it with that type of mindset and really expecting that struggle, it really just makes a huge difference in honestly everything.
I hate that it works that way, but in my experience, it does work that way every time. Every time you're
Mhm.
about to go through a breakthrough, the next level is around the corner. You're building your own momentum. You can see it, you can feel it, and then boom, that devil or that challenge all of a sudden has to get in
Yeah.
front of you. It's so true. I remember early in my career, I once heard someone say, "The greater the challenge, the greater the reward." And for me, it was that
Mhm.
same mindset you're describing right now. It was, well, when you get to that moment, you're going to get a devil, you're going to get a challenge, you're going to get tested, right? In order to see if you really want what's on the other side. But when you get through it, you realize that there was a reason for it. So good. So right. I still hate it, but it's so true.
I know. I'm
Um,
never gonna get over it. I've just learned to accept it.
yeah, but you're spot on. Once you have that paradigm, you learn to reframe how you approach those things that are presented in front of you. And I can tell that that's not just words for you. Like, you believe that, and it's part of the
Mhm.
success you're creating and the community that you're leading. So I love that. Do you think when we go through these challenge moments, these devil moments, these obstacle moments, Do you think that kind of helps us restore or understand like what we're passionate about or what we're really meant to do? Do you think those tests kind of push us in a direction we're meant to? I'm curious your perspective there.
Absolutely. Because sometimes we have to realize that we almost need to be reminded of the reason why we're doing something, right? We have to
Mm.
go back to our why. And those moments I feel like really help us go back to that, right? Like obviously for me, my daughter and my family is a big deal for me, like it is for many others. And I just when any type of challenge happens, I think to myself, I'm like, my little girl's looking at me, right?
Mhm.
She's saying, Mama, you can do this. Mama, I need this, and just learning that she's watching everything and really making sure that I'm developing a strong little girl that can take on the world, head first. I think about that every time a challenge comes up, right? And sometimes when we get in the midst of the work and the flow and all that, we kind of forget about it. It's in our subconscious, it's there, but it's not right in front of our face. And so those challenges I feel like really resurface that and drive us to work even harder because it really can make or break you, but when you have that deep down emotional nitty gritty why that failure isn't an option for, it really helps resurface that and helps us push harder, in my opinion.
Absolutely. It's kind of like you go through the pain and it kind of leads you to, like you said, what you're passionate about. It reinforces why you're doing it. It gives you clarity and, do you really want this? Why do you want this? What's important? I love the way you're describing all of it. And, you mentioned kind of that giving you an ability to connect with people, share your experiences with people. I know the buzzword over the last couple years has been like authenticity, showing up authentic. And, I smile because I'm curious, what does that mean to you? And do you think these are like connected? Do you think going through the stuff, doing the work, these experiences, is that help you show up authentically? And what advice do you have when you're coaching your team kind of on this topic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because that really helps shape us who we are, through our experiences and things like that. And then being able to put that out there. Some people don't feel comfortable talking about the fact that they struggled, you know, and it's wild to me. And I understand that it can, I mean, trust me, I didn't like to admit that I crashed my business one time, and that I lost focus on the sight of what was right and what I should have been focusing on. My mind went down a money driven path, a transactional path. And you cannot have a transactional mindset in this business or if you want to help people and still have success, right? Because that's always going to come out. And so I had to be knocked down off my high horse for a quick minute, right? To reset and realize like what was actually important. And
Mhm.
and those things and admitting that and being vulnerable about the fact I didn't like to tell people that I had eating disorders or that I struggled with postpartum depression when it's supposed to be one of the happiest moments of your life. Like those aren't fun things to tell people, but so many of us are struggling. We are all in pain in some reason or why. That's why a lot of us start direct sales is because of a pain point, right? And to be able to put that out there and let people know who you are and what you've been through, it just makes that connection so much deeper. And that's really what being authentic is all about.
Mhm.
And you shouldn't be afraid to show your true colors, right? And who you are, right? And I feel like people can sense that now more than ever. And if you're putting out your experiences and the way what you believe, you're just going to attract the same kinds of people into your business and or a following or whatever the case may be. You can connect with more people and serve more people that way. And I think it's just sometimes on social media, everybody likes to put that highlight reel out there, and we just think that that's normal. And it starts to make people feel really bad about where they're at in life. And for you to come in there and say, hey, sis, I am on the struggle bus with you. I have been there. They're gonna like that. They're gonna like it. There's gonna find a sense of comfort and they're gonna start to trust you. And just being authentic is honestly the way to go, in my opinion. And you should never be afraid to admit with who you are and where you've been because it's who you are.
So put on your coach hat. So Jessica, coach hat now. Let's say there's someone in your organization, someone that's maybe new to the industry, and we've all been through stuff. We've all been through stuff, different stories, different journeys, but we've all been through stuff. And let's say a person just, for whatever reason, isn't ready to share yet. Like it's still the perfect feed. It's still maybe a little guilt or shame with the stuff that they went through. But you know that them getting in touch with that is going to help them show up authentically, create that attraction. What coaching do you give a person in that moment that maybe still has the filter on, right? Still has the mask
Right.
on how they can show up more authentically them?
A lot of times in those situations, I always ask them, why did you join? Why did you say yes? And a lot of the times they'll say it's, well, you said this, or my friend was getting results and I saw how much they struggled or whatever. I just start saying you could be that person for somebody else, and we just have to become fearless. Like, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of what people are going to think of you? Why? What if this could be the thing that changes your life, and then not only changes your life, but someone else's life? That's what's weighing on this,
Mhm.
and at the end of the day, until you decide to start becoming vulnerable, and really just take off that cloak you put over yourself and realize that it's okay to not be perfect, and that's how we connect with people, and that's even probably why you said yes. That's when you're going to uncover your success. So whenever you're ready to do that, that's when you're ready to start having success and making a transition in your business. And I know that kind of sounds a little harsh, but sometimes and it's just putting the ball in somebody else's court. It's like, hey, it's up to you, right? And just putting it into perspective for them. Why did you say yes? Is it because I was vulnerable? Is it because it was your friend was somebody was vulnerable? That made you decide that this is what you wanted to do.
Yep.
You got to put yourself in those shoes.
I got to go back because I know you opened the loop, right? You talked about a crash. Now, I'm not going to ask what happened. But what I am going to ask is, what did you learn from it? Like, if you were to look back at like the Jessica of today versus the Jessica in that moment, what were the top couple things that were the lessons delivered in that moment that you carry with you today?
Well, in all honesty, obviously started in direct sales, and I'm just like a fire, fire, fire. Like, I don't really aim a whole heck of a
Mhm.
lot. I just like to just run with it or whatever. And that's what I did. And there was really no strategy towards it. And in the beginning, it was, I want to serve people. I want to change lives. I want people to have the things that I'm having, and, the experiences and all that kind of stuff. But when the money starts coming in and you've never really had that before, it can change your mindset, and it can change from, I want to serve this person, to I just want to sign this person up, or I just want to
Mhm.
sell him something, right? You take you're a servant mentality, and it starts to transition into a transactional mentality. And I didn't really realize that that's what was happening. And like I said, I totally hate to admit that, but all about being
Mhm.
vulnerable around here. And so when that happened, it made me realize what I was doing. And I had a mentor sitting there telling me, girl, you got to slow down before you speed up. And I didn't really understand what that meant until later. I got to take my time to develop my people. It's not just about signing people up and just letting them go, even though some people like me are like that. Most people are not. Most people need to be nurtured, to be watered a little bit, need a little sunshine. And some people just aren't. And I wasn't that way. And so to be able to really take myself to relate to not just the people that are like me, but everybody across the board. We all have different learning styles and that kind of stuff, and really just bring my mindset back to what I was really all about. And at the end of the day, I just want to serve others wholeheartedly. I want them to experience freedom and happiness and comfort and peace. And, direct selling is just the avenue that I've been able to do that for people, and just never lose sight of that again, and just always keep people first at my forefront is a big deal for me now. And it always has been since the beginning, but I did lose sight of that for a little bit. And that at the end of the day is what crashed my business, is being transactional and not being that servant leader,
Mhm.
and really just taking the time to connect with people and nurture people and really help coach them to become the best version of themselves. And so just really never losing sight of that again is something that, like I said, I won't ever do, but I definitely had to learn that lesson the hard way.
Well, thank you for having the strength to show up and share that with us. And that's always a true testament that you're on the other side when you're willing to just get publicly into a conversation and share the lessons. And I know you know this now, but for all the listeners maybe that are still in the first part of their journey, for all of you out there, just letting you know, it's normal. You're going to go through the downs. So just for everybody out there, know that Jessica's story, she's sharing openly and vulnerably. Every leader that gets to the ultimate pinnacle within their career, their company, their rewards plan has similar stories, and everybody goes through it, and when you first go through it, it feels like a downward spiral. Like it feels like a crash, like Jessica's describing, but then you're around long enough and you have enough conversations, you realize it's not a downward spiral. It's just a normal cycle. You go up,
It's a roller
right? And then all of
coaster.
a sudden you go down because you got to grab the lesson. And then those lessons move you up higher than ever before. And you know what? There's probably going to be another dip. And it is normal. And we learn along the way. So thank you for sharing that. And congratulations for being on the other side. And what you're doing today is phenomenal. And so many people's lives out there. And I have heard those words. I love how you said transactional to connection. And when you were saying, I could feel people hearing this that probably are going to be like, oh, am I being a little more about the transaction, or am I really being about the connection that I'm building within my people? So thank you for highlighting that. Let's kind of jump. So you've 7 years in the industry, have an amazing community growing. You're reached a level that I'm sure Jessica, when you're first getting, started, was the dream, was the vision, and a lot of our listeners want us to aspire to be. I'm curious your perspective on where the world is at, where the channel is at. I'm sure where many of our businesses are at, and what shifts you're seeing right now today, 2024, that maybe are a little different than 7 years ago or 3 years ago, and how are you coaching your team to navigate them?
I feel like there really are a lot of shifts right now. And especially, after 2020, I feel like just people's mindsets really changed. And just honestly, the industry in general, with social media being such a big deal. And that's where people are at, right? Like people are on social media, they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram. They're living on these things. That's some of the things that people do when they first wake up in the morning, right? And if we want to grow our businesses, we got to start meeting people where they're at. And so I feel like that's been a really big shift for me, is to start teaching my team how to show up on social media properly. And I know some people don't necessarily want to utilize it, but it is an amazing tool once you figure it out. And I live out in a field in Oklahoma. Okay. Like I got more cows as neighbors than people. Okay. So I have to use social media, and I really have ever since I started. And so that was kind of one of the differences when I first got going, was I was doing everything on social media, whereas some people were still doing more home parties and those kinds of things. And to be honest, like I've said a couple of people saying this, but those never really worked for me. I didn't thrive in that kind of environment. I was more like the coffee shop gal type of thing. And I feel like I personally, and my team as well, thrives online. And we just have to make it easier for people. Because the thing is that we're not necessarily competing with other network marketing companies, which a lot of people think we are. Like Uber is our competition, right? To get people to do direct sales, we have to make it easy. People can go jump in an Uber and go make, part-time $500 a week when, or maybe, less or more than that, depending on the person. But we have to make it just as easy, because the only thing that we can offer is the fact that they're still trading time for money, and we can create time freedom here. And so that's one of the things that we really have to highlight. But we really do have to make it easier for people, because people are busier now than ever. We have to have two incomes most of the time these days. And even with me just having one very busy 9-year-old little girl who does travel softball and other sports and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I was at the ball field 7 nights last week. 7, and we're traveling and doing all these things, and we just have one kid. Right. There's people that are 10 times busier than me. And so for us to be able to deliver this to people on an easier platter, then teaching people how to do it on social media, and just how to have those genuine conversations with people when you're at the ball field or whatever, that seem authentic and genuine, has been a big thing that I've actually been more focused on, just because that's where people are at right now. 15, 20 years ago, you could live off of one income. A lot of women stayed at home, and now that's just not really the case with how our economy is. And so having to kind of shift into a different, way of doing things, it's not saying get rid of these tools. It's like, hey, let's just add some more tools to our tool belt.
You mentioned the gig economy, right? Driving for Uber as an example, but there's really an endless amount now of kind of call it side gigs that someone can start, like you said, instantly, effortlessly, and start making dollars for their time. How do you see what we do in direct selling as a better opportunity than, say, all of the gig opportunities out there today?
Most of the time you think about it, there's a ceiling on everything. Like you can only devote so much time to make so much money, right? Versus direct sales. I mean, the opportunity is literally endless. Like there's no ceiling. And that is phenomenal. I mean, it's a phenomenal industry that I think a lot of people don't really think that they can actually do, right? And they don't realize that they're actually direct selling all the time. Oh, where'd you get those leggings? Or, oh, where did you buy your hair products? Or, oh, what are you drinking right now? And they're just things that they're just buying and they're sharing with their friends and they don't even know that they're doing it. Right. It's like, hey, if you found a company that you liked, you can do that same thing and become, financially stable because of it. And just really changing that perspective for people and showing people how easy it really is and that they're probably already doing it is a big deal. And like I said, I feel like there is a shift in the industry because they can go trade time for money, but direct selling is one of the only industries that you can not only just, it's like work, 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 get paid, right? But then eventually it's like get paid, get paid, get paid, work, get paid, get paid, get paid, work. There's no other industries that really offer that, especially a lot of the side gigs that people are doing now.
I love how you describe that, because I think everybody listening to this show right now agrees with everything you're saying. It's why we're all here. But I love how you shared the language you're using. And I think we all can learn from that because it's the truth, right? It's not time for money. It's time freedom. It's not right work for dollar. It's eventually can have an unlimited potential. And even what you were saying earlier about finding something that really ignites your passion, your purpose, that really can make an impact. And create connection, community today are all things that separate us from what's going on in the gig economy. So I love those highlights. Now you said social media, and I heard the word simple. So we got to make social media simple. You're obviously doing a lot online. You've built a brand, you have a following, you're teaching it within your community. If you were to summarize some of the most important things that are a part of your social media strategy for all of us to learn from today, what would some of those things be?
Number one is you got to brand yourself. And a lot of people don't think that they are a brand and they think of a brand as like a logo, right? Your branding yourself is not a logo. It is you. It is what you believe in, your values, like how you show up, your experiences, and not being afraid to put that out there. When you look at statistics, people are about, I think, don't quote me on the number, but 60% more likely to purchase something from somebody that has a strong personal brand because that creates authority. It helps people understand who you are. It helps people trust you, right? And people like to buy things and work with people from that they know and trust, right? And without having that and really understanding what that is and learning how to promote yourself in that way, it's really going to hinder you on social media. 100%. And not being afraid to be quirky, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't think that the people are going to like this or whatever. At the end of the day, we have to realize not everybody is going to be your ideal customer, right? Even though you might be in a business that is technically for everybody, right? You're not going to have everybody that's going to be your ideal customer, and really trying to understand your target market. Like, who are you talking to? Because if you're trying to talk to everybody, you're going to not be talking to nobody. Right. And your paycheck's going to get lost in the sauce. Right. Like, and at the end of the day, it's really about learning to connect with more people. And if you start putting yourself out there and it's more people that are like you that are going through the things that you've gone through, you're going to be able to connect with them so much deeper. And at the end of the day, we're not in a selling business, we're in a connection business. And so really understanding, the value of a personal brand, understanding your target market and really narrowing that down and really not being afraid to be vulnerable and put that out there, I feel like are some key aspects that really drive people towards your business on social media.
So let's say I'm listening to this right now. I'm fired up. Like, okay, I wanna build a personal brand. I'm ready to maybe remove some of that perfect filter. I'm ready to share some of my experiences so I can create connection. Like all the things you're giving to us, right? All the gifts you're giving to us. Like someone's ready to go. What advice would you give to somebody on maybe some first steps they can take when it comes to this social strategy today if they're just beginning?
Dialing in on your target market. I always have my typical avatar, I guess you could say. And anytime I get on my social media, I pretend that they are sitting right in front of me and I am talking directly to that person. And if you don't know who that person is, who was the person that you were when you first started? Talk to them. Right. If we kind of put ourselves in those scenarios and we think that's who our audience is and we start talking to them like that when we know who we're talking to, it really makes a big difference on how we show up on social media. It shows the authenticity and it really helps drive that emotional connection as well.
So good. And those are steps we all can do right now. We all can do. I love how you just made that simple for us. Right. Because a lot of people talk about, well, find your niche, who's your target audience. And I know there's questions and frameworks we can learn to help us narrow that. But I love how you just said, talk to your former self, talk to who you were at the
Mhm.
beginning. You know that person, you were that person, you can speak to that person. I think that's a super wise piece of advice for everybody to start. And if we show up consistently, we're going to find our voice. I love all of that. I'm curious, what's your vision right now, like your personal vision for where you think our channel is going, right? You mentioned that we're in kind of a season of shift. We're all kind of navigating post-pandemic, all the things with social and technology. Where do you, Jessica, see this going, right? Or hope this is going? What's your vision for all of us over the next few years?
I think there's going to be a lot more people showing up on social media in just a different way. Um, and I think the reason why we gather is also different. I feel like after 2020, people want to gather for fun. People want to gather for connection. It's not necessarily just about putting on a presentation and trying to sell something to somebody. It's like, what's going to drive people to your events and things like that. And I'm really big on saying, hey, we're going to have a good time. We're going to do this, and really understanding that the world's different now. The way we receive information is different now. And the way we show up on social media, you can't just post a picture of something that your corporate company decides to, post, right? Like we got to get deeper than that. And really upping your social media game, I think is going to be a big channel for people because, like I said, that's where people are at. I mean, literally, how many people wake up? The first thing they do, I know some people are probably listening to this thinking, oh, that's me, wake up and start scrolling on Facebook first thing in the morning. I mean, before they do anything, they're scrolling on social media,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, like I said, really understanding to meet people where they're at and where they are in life. It's a busy season of life, and social media is such an easy tool for people to utilize to have success. And to be honest, I've built, I would say 90% of my business from social media, but I gather my team for fun, for community, for, friendships, and really dialing in on the culture and the community aspect and connection. I mean, it's so cool that I put on these events for my team that we all come and we meet. And then they're still friends going, doing things, after our events are over. They're becoming best friends that way. I feel like those are the things that people really want out of this business these days is not just obviously the financial freedom, the time freedom, and all that, but it's emotional connection and really showing up on social media and learning how to use that as an outlet effectively because that's where people are. I feel like is really where the industry is going to be going.
Well, Jessica, I love that vision. I agree with you 1,000%. And it's true, right? Technology today, social media allows us to reach more people. It allows us to create the attraction by following the tips that you're giving. It allows us to deliver information. It allows us to do the transaction. But I love how you said you're also combining that with in-person community to create the connection, right? To create the fun. I think we all can take that note. Like create fun in your community. It's what people want.
Yeah.
So I love the way you articulated that. And I think that is what's working today and where we're all going. I want to leave some time for closing thoughts and anything else that is on your mind or your heart. You've already given us so much. But before we get into some closing thoughts, can we just do like a rapid fire round, 3 really fast questions? First thing that comes to your mind in like a few words. Does that work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So these are three questions I've asked most guests, right? Similar questions. And it really is in the spirit of the show, right? So shift, obviously, we're talking about the season of shift we're in as an industry, as a channel, as a world, as leaders navigating and leading communities. But it's also really about the shifts we make mentally, right? The mind shifts or the belief shifts that allow us to go to whole new levels. Like I really do believe, as you've described in today's conversation, that like that right shift at that right time can change everything. And you've already given us some amazing ones in your story, but my direct questions, and the first thing that comes to mind, no right or wrong answer, is when you look at your professional journey, right, as a direct selling entrepreneur, what is the single most significant belief shift, right? That shift you went from telling yourself one thing to telling yourself something else that has helped you become the leader you are today?
Honestly, is just believing in myself and my ability, because you have to believe in you long before the world is ever going to, right? And nobody is going to jump on board with you if you don't deep down truly believe that you have the ability to succeed. And then that's going to drive through the people that you bring on as well. So self belief goes so far that, I mean, like I said, sometimes people wake up and they're just telling themselves negative things all day. Oh, looking in the mirror and they just don't like what they see and all these things. But you have to know that you have the ability. There's no difference between me and, the current success in the industry or the top seller or whatever. The difference is the level of self-belief. That's a big one for me.
Beautiful. So same question, few words, first sentence that comes to mind in your personal life, the most significant belief shift for you today on a personal level.
Being present, really enjoying the small wins and understanding that it's okay to celebrate those, because sometimes when we're so driven, we forget to celebrate ourselves and be proud. And we just constantly keep, pushing and pushing. And then it's like we get burnout or whatever. So just taking the time to be present, celebrate the small wins, and get back to work when it's needed.
I love it. And last one's kind of like a visionary question. And sometimes I think about just the influence and power and potential of the entire direct selling community worldwide. Like if we took every promoter, distributor, consultant, representative, affiliate, names that we call ourselves, right? And you think about the amount of impact we can make as a channel. I mean, it's exciting. It's inspiring. My question for you is if you right now could like snap your fingers, if every single consultant in the world were listening to this right now and you could snap your fingers and insert one belief shift for every single distributor in this channel, what shift would you give them?
Share fearlessly and be unoffendable. 100%. I know I mentioned it earlier, but if you can go into this world and get out there and not be afraid of what people are going to say and just go full force 100%, we're going to make a massive impact. Because, like I said, with the challenges we face, the people, there's always going to be negativity. And sometimes we're going to allow that negativity to have a negative effect on us. But when you step into an unoffendable era and a sharing fearlessly era, it changes something in you, and it changes your impact, because the opportunity is endless. The ceiling is not there. It's just everything is open and you're clear and you're just at that sense of peace, so that you can really just step into the best version of yourself in this industry.
So good. Well, I want to leave a moment for any other closing thoughts. We've already covered so much. I mean, I appreciate the energy you've given us. You've shared us openly, authentically, vulnerably, your stories. And then through those stories, the key shifts in your journey. We all can understand that sometimes those devils, right, are put in our way at those certain times, and new levels do bring new devils. But now we can realize that those are just challenges that are gateways to new opportunities. You've challenged us to think about the people, right, the haters, right, the people that maybe don't see what we see, and how they don't dictate our opinions. I love the advice you've given on passion and purpose. Some really great tactical tips on social media strategy and things we can do today, right? Immediately today, every single person can start taking steps, speaking to that younger self, right? Showing up consistently and doing things that I know will impact the business. We've covered so much in the time so far. Is there anything else on your mind or your heart you want to leave us with before we round out?
I know when you're getting started, or even if you're in the industry, it really does seem like a roller coaster of a ride, but just stay on the roller coaster. Like stay on it. We got to go through these things and we really do. And eventually it's going to level out and it's going to be the best thing ever. But do not give up because this really is such an amazing industry that provides so much impact. And it's one of the only ones that can not only, bring a great income, but your income actually does become that reflection of your impact. And there really is nothing different than saying someone else telling you, like, hey, you changed my life. Like, it's great to make the money. It's great to be financially stable and do the things for your family and go do those things that you've never been able to do. But when you have the ability to change somebody's life, that's a big deal. And when somebody tells you that for the first time, hold on to that and run with it because you can get that a million times over. And when we can do that, we can truly make this world a better place.
Stay on the roller coaster. I absolutely love it. Jessica, you are a light. Congratulations on everything you are doing, where you're at on your journey, but more importantly, the ripple and the impact you're making in people's lives every day. Thank you for pouring into us. I know this was absolute fire. And I know everybody, regardless of where you're at right now in your journey, you can grab something today to help accelerate your business and your impact. All of this is live at shiftpodcast.com. You can find us in all the places. And the only reason we're spending time here today is to share the shifts that'll help you and your community go to the next level. And I do really believe a shift, the right shift is a gift. And now all of you have the ability to share the gift of today's conversation with those that come to your mind or your heart. So please do so, whether that's Apple or Spotify or Audible, or you can find us on YouTube and see Jessica. She's radiating. She's glowing. You can feel her energy if you want to watch the video. Find us on the YouTube platform, shippodcast.com. And please share this with somebody that you know is going to get an impact and help us spread the word and raise the tide across the channel. So Jessica, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your energy and appreciate everything you poured into us. This has been an amazing conversation. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having me, Blake. I appreciate you.
Until next time, everybody,